My name is Dave Murray, and years ago I was the Dean of Admissions at DePauw University, just west of Indianapolis a little bit, college of about 2,400 students. DePauw received a several million-dollar grant from the Lilly Endowment, a big foundation in Indianapolis, to go out and experiment in some partner schools that would, in ways that would help more students get onto some kind of program after high school. So as I told the students today, you know, when I use the word college, I'm talking auto diesel mechanic programs, cosmetology school, any kind of technical 2-year or 4-year program anywhere in the country. Basically, 3 years into that grant project, a whole bunch of folks in the community foundations around Indiana found out about what was going on. We did a briefing day. They were frustrated that we couldn't help them. And so I decided to leave DePauw and set up the National Center for College Costs. We're entirely grant funded everywhere we do our work. Somebody pays us to be a free service to students and families. So I want to add my thanks to Kristen's, to Bernie and the foundation for the grant that allowed me to be here to spend the day. We had an interesting day. The seniors, we talked a little bit about how to get an advantage in an application process for admissions and scholarship. We talked about essay writing, if you've got to write an essay for admissions or scholarship. We spent some time with the sophomores going through live college admissions files and had them become admissions committees and decide which of the two of the 4 candidates that I brought with me today, their files. I said, we've only got 2 spots left in the class. You decide which 2 of the 4 get those spots. And they got to see good and bad course selections. They saw good and bad essays. One really top student had a just terrible interview. They saw all those things that admissions committees and scholarship committees debate. All 4 grade levels saw a PowerPoint, which what we call our futures PowerPoint, on the world economy and the world labor force. They make China, Nike has Chinese workers make their sneakers for $31 a week. They live next door to those plants in dormitories with bunk beds. Those unskilled jobs because they'll work for so much less. There are McDonald's in this country that have only 3 employees left. They're totally automated. You walk up to a machine, you punch in your order, the machine prepares the food, wraps it, packages it, delivers it to you. You swipe a card to pay for it, and you're gone. Nanotechnology, teeny tiny little robots. They're so small that 100,000 of them fit across the thickness of that piece of paper. And we showed them the technology, some of the technology that's coming. They're going to reverse engineer the human brain in the next 10, 15 years. It's going to be a wild ride for our kids and our grandkids. But all of this is to drive home the point that you got to take care of business in the classroom. Because if we've got the skill set, we can adapt in that world. We can compete in a world labor force for those jobs. And one of the nice things about the jobs being created in the United States right now, especially for students who don't see themselves hanging in there for another 4 years of college, 5 out of 6 new jobs being created in the United States require 2 years or less after high school. They may be able to read an X-ray in India or someplace around the world, but somebody here's got to take it. 2-year degree program plus your apprenticeship. Signing bonus, moving expense allowance, and a pretty nice hourly starting rate if you've got that certification in places around the country. So a part of our message today was the students. If you're giving the faculty what you got every day, keep it up. And if you're not, what matters is what happens when you walk out the door tonight. Are you going to kick it into gear if you haven't been doing that, so that we've got options? And you'll see on the back here of this chart, I wanted to share that with you. Somebody that leaves high school early, you see the middle of all the incomes there at $25,592. And a bachelor's degree, the 4-year college degree, 4 columns over, at almost $55,000. So $25,000 more a year for 40 years of a work life, that's $1 million of additional income. And if we move all the way to the right to the professional degree holders, our doctors, our dentists, our vets, our psychologists, $75,000 plus more a year, that's $3 million over a 40-year work life. That there's a relationship between education and income potential, and there's a relationship between education and options in life. So I just wanted to give you some sense of the kind of context we tried to put things in for the students today. What I've been asked to do tonight is to talk about college selection, the process, how to go about that. And I'm going to make the college cost issue go away for the families in the room here tonight. Now, if the parents are as skeptical as your children were today, you're going to think I'm half crazy for saying that, but that's going to be my goal. I want to get that issue off the table for every family in the room tonight, and I'll describe the process that will help us do that. So that's kind of where we are. What I want to do is show you this PowerPoint. 85% of high school juniors have never set foot on a college campus anywhere. Miami, Hamilton, right here in town. Never been there. And that's 1 year from going to college. That's not a very informed public. The next fact here is that over half of the students who go off to college somewhere, they change their minds about majors and career plans between the time they enter college and the time they leave. I started out as a math major and a minor in physics, and you can see I'm a long way from that now. And that's what happens. It's normal. It means this situation is very fluid. Kids adjust, they change, they find new interests, stuff they never studied in high school. So it's okay. And they've got time to find their passion. Now, I had some students today that clearly have a passion about something. They're pretty goal-directed. They know what, at least they think they know what they want. It might change. But for a number of students, they haven't found that yet. And why am I doing this stuff in school? From my point of view, it's to get the skill set so when the right passion and opportunity comes along, you can seize the day. And I talk to students all the time about it doesn't matter where you've been, it's where do you go starting now. We can't change the past. Where do we go from here? And for me, it's not where you go as a student, it's that you go. And you'll see some pretty startling statistics here. I've talked a little bit about the McDonald's situation. The fellow on my staff who found this says that's Homer Simpson's brain, for those of you that can relate to that. But it's the whole thing of they may be able to read the x-ray somewhere else. Tax returns are now done in other countries. The local tax preparer takes the name, address, and social security number off, puts a random ID on my information, sends it to Guatemala, Nicaragua, someplace. They have no idea it's my tax return they're doing. They email it back. We take the random ID off, put the name, address, and social security number back on, and hand me my tax return, and just made more money because they'll do it for less. But that is the world in which we, and our kids and grandkids in particular, are going to live in. Startling statistics here. Of every 100 students who enter the 9th grade in Ohio, 70 graduate from high school. 30 out of 100 don't make it to a high school degree. 40 enter college. 29 make it past the freshman year. And 19 graduate within 6 years of graduating from high school with either a 2- or a 4-year degree. Only 1 out of 5 of the original 9th graders. In my home state, that's 21, I think it is, in Indiana. It's 20, 21 in Illinois. It's 13 in Texas. I think it's 22 in Colorado. These are some of the other states we've been doing work in. And we've got to change that. We've got to get more kids going and make it to a degree of some kind in that world economy and labor force. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the process, and I've got a handout that we can chat about as well. But one of the things that, for non-seniors, that we need to think about is the college entrance tests. And things have changed in the last 5 or 6 years for me in terms of what I recommend for students and parents. So I want to spend a little time on that. There are 2 college entrance tests, the SAT and the ACT. The colleges take either one of them. Ohio is predominantly an ACT testing state. Indiana, SAT. Illinois, ACT. There are students in all these states taking the other test. I'm using the SAT because it's just got 3 subscores to deal with. The ACT has 4. We are recommending that students take it early and often. Why early? Colleges are moving up their admissions and academic scholarship deadlines. It might be November 1. Well, if I haven't taken the SAT or the ACT in my junior year, I can't get one taken in the senior year fast enough to make that deadline. So we're really, really pushing students to get that testing done by the spring of the junior year so they go into their senior year, not just with 3 years of courses and grades on their records, but also that testing. Why more than once? Typically, your score can't go down it can only go up. Now, I'm using the SAT, and with the SAT, on the critical reading, math, and writing subscores, you get 200 points for signing your name, and the top score is 800. The national average on each of those is right around 500. So let's say we've got a student that goes out on the first attempt, puts up a 600 critical reading, a 600 math, and a 500 writing sample. We've got a 1700 total SAT. You'll hear students say, I've got a 1760 SAT. They're totaling those scores. This student goes back out and takes it a second time. The critical reading drops from 600 to 500. Math stays at 600, but the writing goes from 500 to 600. I've got a 1700 on this second test, but here's what a lot of the colleges do if you've taken it more than once. They come up with what some call a super score. They'll take the 600 critical reading from the first test, the 600 writing from the second test, 600 math from either one of them, and recalculate the total. And now across the two exams, I've got an 1800 total. And that might not only help us on admission, but I guarantee you at some colleges, the difference between 1700 on the individual test, but 18 on the combined scores is another level of academic scholarships. So unless students put up big time test scores the first time out, most of them have nothing to lose and only something to gain by taking that test a second time. Here are a bunch of colleges and universities and their logos from across my home state. College visits are really important. 85% of juniors haven't done one yet, but it's really important that students get out and start visiting, because some of this they just don't really know what it's like until they feel it. You don't really understand how big Ohio State is until you walk on a campus of 60,000 plus. They don't understand how small a college can be until they feel how small it is. How many of you, if you had to guess, students and parents, students or parents, your son or daughter, how many of you think they're going to go to a large university? Anybody thinking big? Okay. So that means Wittenberg and Denison and Kenyon and Mount St. Joe's and a whole bunch of smaller colleges are off the list. Doesn't matter how good they are in your field. How many of you think you want to go to a smaller college or university? Okay. So Ohio State, Indiana and Purdue in my home state, Michigan, Michigan State. Whew, I can't believe I even said the word Michigan here in Ohio. Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois. These are all great Big Ten universities. Doesn't matter how good they are in your field, they're off the list. And so students have to decide. The hardest part of this, as you'll see with a little kind of an 8-step flow to this that we put together for you, some of this they just don't understand how large or small it is, how far away it is from you as parents, until they go and experience some of that. The visits are crucial. So size is one of those key things. Is it a small college campus? This is IU-PUI, tens of thousands of students, the combined IU and Purdue, Indiana University and Purdue campus in Indianapolis, but Ohio State's even twice that size. Location, distance from home. Indianapolis area, dad and daughter that I'm working with years ago, never forget this conversation. Dad says, I don't want her more than an hour from Indianapolis. Daughter says, I don't want to be more than an hour from Indianapolis. And then I asked her what she wanted to study. The things that are important, the colleges that are really good in her field, none of them are within an hour of Indianapolis, from my experience. But that was psychologically, emotionally important enough for the two of them that I did the best I could with that 1 hour radius. Now, a year or two later, she's not getting what she wants and needs. She willing to be further away? Mom or dad willing to have them further away? These are the kind of tough questions that some students struggle with in terms of the priorities of what matters most. Location can be one of those. Urban versus rural. The climate. How easy or hard is it to get to? How expensive or inexpensive is it to get to and from that location, wherever it might be? Academics, class size, Selectivity. How selective is it? How hard is it going to be for me to get in? If I'm last in the class at New Miami High School, and so far I've only applied at Harvard, Princeton, and Yale, I haven't applied at enough places yet. We got to know, there got to be some places on our list where we know we've got a shot at admission, a good shot. And the best way to get that is the summer following the junior year. We've got our courses and grades for the first 3 years. We've got at least our first set of test scores in the spring of the junior year. You go to the guidance office and you ask for an unofficial copy of that high school record and those scores. Every single admissions office in the country has somebody who is responsible for applications from this high school or Butler County or the Cincinnati area or the whole state of Ohio. I'm guessing at Stanford there's somebody that has the whole state. Somebody who's responsible for the first read on those applications. And what I suggest you do, ideally you go to visit the college and you make an appointment with that person and you put that piece of paper in front of them and say, tell me honestly what you think of my chances. If you can't go visit them, we scan it and email it, or we mail them a copy, or we fax them a copy and say, please call me and tell me what you think. When I was in admissions, you got 1 of 3 responses. Hey, you're going to be a really strong candidate for lots of selective places like DePaul, where I used to be. Or you're in the hunt. We're going to take a serious look at your candidacy, but it's not a shoe-in situation. Or it's going to be a long shot. It's going to be very competitive for you. Now, I tell students all the time, if they really like the place and they hear that third response, don't make the admissions decision for yourself by not applying. Let's make our best case, take our best shot, but we better have some other alternatives. We've got to have some places with probability, and the best way to get that, staff here at the foundation, our staff, we can ballpark it, but the best way to get that is from somebody looking at that record through the first 3 years. Reputation. When I go to graduate from that technical 2-year, 4-year program, am I going to get a job? Is it going to be with a good firm or organization in my field of interest? If I want to go to graduate school, to go to law school or wherever, if I'm one of the better students in my program, am I going to get into some of the better law schools in the country in this case? So we want to be looking at, on the front end, at what's going to happen on the back end of that college experience. Career planning and placement. What are they going to do to help me with that whole career planning and placement process? Are there internship opportunities? How wired is the campus? Facilities, academically or otherwise. These are some of the things that are factors. How's that shot? Guy named Jake, he's a DePaul student. I don't know where he found this, but I love it. I had a young lady recently who was sitting in the front row of one of my workshops. She said, I said, man, I don't want to be on the top bunk. And she said, I don't want to be on the bottom one either. Extracurricular activities. I played football in high school and college, and I wanted to find a place that was good academically, but where at my size and speed I could continue to play the sport, or music, or theater, debate, whatever it might be that the student's interested in. What's there to do on campus in the area? Social life and retention rate. One of those quick questions you can ask any admissions office that you're interested in. You ask them, what percentage of the first year class is back for year 2? If I hear 95%, is that a good sign? If they say 50% of the class is back, half of them didn't come back, is that a red flag? Do you want to know why? Quick way to get an initial, not a foolproof read, but a quick question you can ask is, what percentage of your first year class is back for year 2 if it's more than a 1-year program? Housing options, meals, health and safety. Am I going to live through my 2 or 4 years there? By the way, every college in the country, by federal mandate, must have their latest crime statistics from the most recent complete year. Numbers by category, they ought to be able to produce it just like that for you. Religious affiliation. There's a great example of the individuality of the priority setting. For one student and family, that's at the top of the list in selecting a college. For the next student and family, it's not even on the list. And this is the complexity of trying to establish what the priorities are. The cost issue. Are you getting my drift? Don't panic. It really is my job to solve the college cost issue. When you run a place called the National Center for College Costs, that's one of your primary reasons for being. What's the single most important date an Ohio high school senior must remember is what that says. It's a little hard to read. Is it graduation? The answer is no. Is it prom? How about those outfits? The answer is no. Is it spring break? How about those tan lines? The answer is no. What's the most important date an Ohio senior must remember? Unless mom or dad can write the check, it's that prospective college's FAFSA filing deadline. Is there a date when you're a senior you have to fill out for need-based financial aid the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA? You can't do it till after January 1 each year of the senior year and the years following for the next year's financial aid. And colleges often have a date by which they prefer that you have that done and submitted. So we need to look at those dates. What this federal formula kicks out is a number for each family that's called the expected family contribution. This is the amount of money that supposedly a family can contribute towards college costs. Now, the financial benchmarks behind the federal formula were set in 1964, and 47 years later have never been updated. So it is out of step, out of touch. It's very hard on parent income. But with deficits at the federal level, a lot of states struggling right now, nobody has the money to update that formula and make it more realistic. Don't panic. Our job is to figure out, despite that tough formula, it's a rationing device for federal, state, and college money. Our job is to help you figure out which places are still affordable for each of your students and families. This number, as you'll see, has three pieces to it. A student income contribution number if the student made more money on a job than the formula allows. A student asset contribution if there's money in an account in a student's name and it's exposed under the formula, it gets hit. And then parents, they're going to look at your annual income and your accounts to come up with one parent number. And I want to give you a little feel for this two student pieces to this. Right now, for a senior here at the high school, the year that they're going to look at on that FAFSA, that federal form, is 2011. We got 1 month to go. If you got a junior, they're going on the clock in 33 days, the 1st of January. So the first year that counts is the spring of the junior year through the fall of the senior year, that last full calendar year, and then each calendar year after that for the next year of college of financial aid. In 2011, the first $6,000 that a New Miami senior made, or a college student already in college made, is protected. And the cutoff is really higher than that because they add an allowance for the Social Security and Medicare taxes they take out of our wages, state income tax, and if the student has paid any federal taxes, we get to add that on. The break point for a lot of Ohio seniors and college students is right around $67.91. Now, if you're a typical audience, there are some students who can make more than that because of some of the exceptions under the formula. Once we have one of our college cost estimator reports, which we're going to talk about, it takes me about 30 seconds to size up your situation. What's in play, what's not in play, which colleges are going to work, etc. It's all these gray hairs going to work on your behalf. So there's that number, whatever it is. That's a very common number for a lot of students. Once you make more than that, they want 50 cents of every dollar the student makes from that point on. Not literally out of the paycheck, but here's what happens. This student right here has made $1,600 more than what the formula allows. So they're going to take half of that, $800, and add it on to the expected family contribution. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say we've got a college out there that costs $15,000 a year. The family contribution in this example was going to be $4,000. So we subtract that, and there was $11,000 of financial aid eligibility or financial need. But because the student made excess money under the formula, they tack 800 on here, we lose 800 down here. So it's important to know, is there an income cutoff for the student? If so, what is it in a year that counts? Money that's sitting out in an account with a student's name on it, a checking account, a savings bond that a parent or grandparent bought in the student's name. If the student has access to that money in that account of whatever kind, nobody else has to sign off on it. That's considered a student asset, and that's going to get hit for 20% every year. So if I've got a new Miami senior that's managed to save $1,000 to help pay for college next fall, that's going to get hit for 20%. They're going to take $200, add it on here, and we're going to lose $200 more down here. So imagine this sequence. I've got a new Miami senior that's been out working hard during 2011 trying to save for college. They're $2,000 over on income. So they're going to take half of that, $1,000, added on to the family contribution. Now the student does save $1,000, but saves it in the student's name, and that's exposed under the formula. Now it gets hit for 20%, $200 more. We're up to $1,200 of the $2,000 the student made beyond the formula. Now take the Social Security, Medicare, and state income taxes out of that $2,000. Meals, gas to and from the job. Some students are making very little on the job when we look at the financial aid that's being lost, but they and their parents usually have no idea that's happening unless they've been to this kind of a workshop. So it's really important. Now, if you're a typical audience, some students and parents, their assets are protected, their accounts. Some students can make an unlimited amount of money, and it doesn't hurt their financial aid because there's some exceptions under the formula depending on parent income levels. And that's why we do what we do, is to simulate this formula in advance, even for seniors. If I've got a senior family, and I've got some here, where the students made more than what the formula allows, we can't do anything about that for 2011. But we can be smarter with what we do in 2012. And for the rest of the families here tonight, if you go through this process with us, you'll know how to handle 2012 and beyond. So that's the goal here. And I wanted to give you a little sense of what it is we do once we run these numbers for a family. And at a workshop that we'll do back here in March, at the courtyard over near the foundation, we'll take you through more in-depth. It's about a 50-minute PowerPoint to show you how this formula works, how to maximize financial aid eligibility, and how to protect it. But as an example, one of the questions we're going to want you asking the colleges once you have the calculation is, are you going to meet 100% of the additional financial need that we show beyond our number? In College A, they cost $10,000 a year, and there's our sample, our example expected family contribution of $4,000. We subtract it. This student needs $6,000 to cover the rest of the cost. Well, the offer is a $1,000 scholarship. We love scholarships and grants because we don't have to pay them back. They just go on the bill. It's gift money. Foundation has a bunch of them to be sure that as a senior, the student applies for those. Here's a job on campus where we can earn $1,000 over the course of the year and put it on the bill, and a $4,000 student loan that we'll pay back once we're out. That totals $6,000. That was the need level. There's no gap. That need has been met 100%. Now look over here. The same student applying at B needs $16,000. They offer a lot more scholarship, $7,000 versus 1. Same $1,000 job, less loan to pay back, $3,000 versus 4. But this only totals $11,000. The student needed $16,000. There's a $5,000 gap. So the formula says the family contribution is $4,000. College B just made it $9,000. The 4 the formula is calling for, and the 5 they didn't give us. And we know who gaps and we know who fully funds. And these are the subtleties of the things that once we know where your numbers shake out and who you're looking at, if Harvard wants you, if you can get in, they got big bucks to give. They'll take care of a student's full need. Now, I want to plant a little seed here because I may or may not get my hands on you again, depending on how you come out of this session and what you do or don't do. Then I've got some seniors here. If a student is offered a federal work-study job on campus, be sure they take that job on campus, because the money they earn on that work-study job does not count in their income total when they go to figure the next year's financial aid, because it's helping to meet our need for the current academic year. So here's a new Miami student last year who last spring and summer made $6,400, and this fall is making $800 on a federal work-study job. At the end of 2011, we've got $7,200 of taxable income. But because this is helping to meet our need for the current academic year, when they go to figure year two's financial aid, they subtract that back out, and we're down to $6,400. This student decides not to take the work-study job, to go work with the boyfriend or the girlfriend to make 25 cents an hour more off campus or whatever. Now, at the end of the year, we got $7,200 taxable and $7,200, and we're over what the formula allows. And I've seen students lose hundreds or thousands of dollars of grant money they wouldn't have had to pay back because they didn't know to take that work-study job on campus. Okay. I've got 3 colleges here with $6,000, $16,000, and $26,000 of financial need after that expected family contribution. Parents, if I tell you that those 3 colleges are all about equal and meeting your son or daughter's needs academically and otherwise, financially, where are we probably going to school? What's the common response? College A, you bet. Okay? Here's College A's offer. $1,000 scholarship, $1,000 job, and a $4,000 student loan. $12,000 in scholarship, $1,000 job, and a $3,000 student loan. $23,000 in scholarship, $1,000 job, and a $2,000 student loan. Where are we going now? C's the better deal because we've got less loan to pay back, 2 versus 3 or 4. But what if they do this instead? A comes after your son or daughter more aggressively with a $4,000 scholarship and a $1,000 loan. $10,000 in scholarship and a $5,000 loan. $15,000 in scholarship and a $10,000 student loan. Where are we going now? We're back to A in a hurry, aren't we? If that's a 4-year program and I got to do that for 4 years, that's $40,000 worth of loan debt, and that's a problem. Parents, that child will be living in that bedroom with you for a while longer because they can't afford a place of their own and that kind of loan debt, most of them coming right out of college. Some of you didn't even smile at that joke. It's not the goal, eh? It's not for your kids either, I'm sure. Folks, if I had this number tonight, and you gave me the names of any place in the country, and I got a little feel for the students' academic credentials now or what they're going to be, we could pretty much tell you tonight what's going to happen on your financial aid. So when I say I can make the college cost issue go away, if you go through the process we're about to describe, we'll know now how your numbers fall out of this formula, and we can update it anytime for non-seniors, and we can begin to have that conversation about who fits the student in other ways besides money, but which places are going to work in a realistic way and which ones are not ahead of time. The most painful time of the year in our office is April and May. Students in our client schools and their families never got around to doing one of these college cost estimators. They just thought it would all work out, and here we sit with the financial aid award with massive loan debt, inadequate funding, and all of a sudden, what do I do now? Late in the game, it's hard to find alternatives. So the idea here is to get ahead of the curve, if at all possible. We have an electronic newsletter that comes out monthly. All you would need to do is send an email to info@collegecost.com, and there's our contact information. The hardest thing for most students is deciding what matters most. All these things you see on the back side of it, some of which we talked about earlier, many of them. You know, what comes first? Religious affiliation, top of the list, not on the list. It's an individual kind of thing. In the second and third steps here, you do want to talk to people and you want to read everything you get your hands on, but be careful. Remember that what you read and what you hear is filtered through somebody else's attitude, bias, and experience. Mine, Kristen's, anybody's. So students need to be careful. If in their research they find a place that they think is hitting on several cylinders that's driving their search process, I say go visit and form your own opinion. My 2 oldest kids, Brian's my oldest, Molly was almost 2 years later, but the way their birth dates fell they were one grade apart, so we visited a bunch of colleges with the two of them. They'd walk on the same campus, on the same day, from the same family, with a lot of the same experiences, and one would love the place and the other would say, get me out of here. So even among family members, you need to be careful with what you read and hear. Go form your own opinion. List the schools, and they've got to vary in terms of selectivity. We've got to have some where admission is probable, highly probable. That's why we get that transcript in the hands of somebody that knows what's likely to happen at the college. Visiting. A couple more comments about visiting. Again, it's important. My last college visit, I'm so glad I made that one more visit. I had that aha moment. I knew I had the whole package. Right size, place I could play football at my size and speed, 3 hours from home. Knew it was close enough I could get home if I had to, but it was far enough away that mom and dad weren't just going to drop in on me. I mean, it was the whole package. A date with a very attractive woman in the freshman class that the football player I was staying with set me up with. I say that never had anything to do with it, but it didn't hurt. I had it. Not every student has that aha moment. The visiting will eliminate the mismatches. You know, they'll walk on a campus and 10 minutes after they're going to turn to you and say, I don't know what I was thinking, this isn't it. Some other place they don't know as well, they make that visit and it all starts coming together. And if it's a residential campus, if we can, when I'm a senior, before I make my final decision, I want that student on campus overnight with other students. Through the admissions office, a coach, a debate coach, you know, somebody involved with the band, staff at the school who knows somebody there, somebody at church, whatever it might be. Because when a student is kicked back late at night in a living unit with other students, you see how they behave, you hear what they talk about, and you can have two schools with similar facilities, program, reputations, etc., that have very different feels below the surface. So ideally, we get to do that. Apply and beat the deadlines. I've been telling students today, got a number of seniors here that haven't filed an application for admission yet, and I was trying to get right in their face to say, look, it's got to happen. 2 days is the 1st of December. Tomorrow we wake up and there's one more day. It's got to happen soon. And the idea is you get them in early because then you got time to work on those candidacies. There's a Cincinnati high school senior that I was telling people about today in some of the sessions, and he applied at DePaul in the fall of his senior year. The last semester we've got to look at is the spring of the junior year. Sitting right in the middle of it is this great big D, as in dog. DePaul's a pretty selective place. So I'm thinking his motivation's gone south, but because it's in early, I've got the ability to call the school because it just didn't look right. This had been a good student. Turns out in that class, no A's, no B's, 1 C, 2 or 3 D's, and everybody else flunked the course. Turns out that D was one of the best grades in the class. Found out a year later that teacher was no longer teaching there with this harsh grading scale. If that application comes in right around the deadline with hundreds or thousands of others, at most places that call doesn't get made. We got a certain short amount of time to read these, make some assumptions, and get the decisions back out the door. Reevaluate your criteria. I got freshmen, sophomores, and juniors here that think they're going to be majoring in X. But by the time they're a senior, they've discovered something else and the major just changed in college. The college that's the best fit for the student may have just changed. Not all the colleges invest in the same facilities, program, and staff, so as students change, the place that's the best fit for them may be changing. Finally, in the last one, it's your decision. Those words are aimed at the students in the room tonight. Students, I hope it's your decision. Parents, please don't dictate that decision. If you do, you will see it in their happiness, in their grade point average, and there'll be a greater chance that they're home living in that bedroom with you for the rest of your lives. How am I doing, students? Keep going. Okay. Well, then I have something to say to the students in the room. I know your parents don't know very much these days. When my kids were your age, I knew less and less with each passing day. Now that they have kids of their own, we're starting to know something again as grandparents. If your parents can go with you on the visits, take them with you. unless they're totally humiliating and embarrassing in public. Take them with you.
You are too.
Sorry, I didn't mean to create this problem here tonight. But it's normal. You're establishing your own independence. That's perfectly normal. If you have to manage your parents, manage them. My kids, Brian, the oldest, and Molly, 1 grade apart, and then Katie comes 3 years later, my third and last child. My kids were absolutely scared to death about the tough questions that Dad, the college admissions dean, was going to ask some poor tour guide or some admissions interviewer, okay? Scared to death of what I'd ask. So the way they managed me is they gave me 1 question on each campus visit. That's all I could ask on campus was 1 question. Katie came along 3 years later. She apparently had twice the confidence level because she gave me 2 questions on each campus. And she will get twice the inheritance of the other 2, I tell them all the time. Now, as soon as we left that campus, it was, Dad, what did you think? Brian, when they said that, I heard that the same way. Molly, when they said that, I got a whole nother take. Katie, did you notice? And she didn't. I saw things she didn't see. She saw things I didn't see. So take a notebook. When you leave that campus, students, jot down what you saw that you liked, what you didn't like, what you still need to know. That tour guide, understandably, doesn't know what the placement record was for biology majors last year they graduated. But somebody on that campus does. So if we liked it, first impression's good, what else do we still need to know? Again, the visiting is crucial. If you have to manage your parents, manage them. Parents, if they have to manage you, let them. And with that, I'll wish you good luck with the family dynamics and all of this. But some other quick thoughts, and you see some of the other things, most of which we've discussed on the back. So, I hope in that short period of time, 50 minutes or so, I've given you some information that helps guide you a little bit in this process. Because of the grant from the Community Foundation, you got me and my staff. You want my business card, you can have one on the way out. If cost is an issue, if you can't just write the check as a family, hope you get the estimator done so we can help you figure that piece of it out. Because in this world, we got to get your kids somewhere, parents. What's really helpful is once a student, and you don't have to go very far away to be small, large, urban, rural. And it can just be local area schools to begin to let the students get a gut feel for, I want large, I want small, you know, those kinds of things. And if out of 4, 5, 6 schools, if they like this 1 or 2, that takes me to a certain set of other schools that might also be possibilities. If it's this 1 or 2 out of the group, if it's a diverse group, that takes me in a whole other direction. When I was the Dean of Admissions at DePauw, people would ask, who are your major competitors for students? Miami of Ohio was one of our major competitors. Now, Miami's bigger than DePauw, but in terms of the cultures of the place, the caliber of the students, a student who likes DePauw may like Miami. A student who likes Miami may like DePauw. Now, there are differences between any 2 colleges, but we can start to sharpen what you want, who to look at, once a student's done a little bit of visiting and starts to sharpen what they want and don't want in a place. What's going to happen as soon as we get it from, we're coming into our busy season, so it's not like overnight turnaround, but we want to get reports in the mail to seniors as soon as possible. It'll have a flyer on top of it that says, you know, bring it to the March 8th workshop at the courtyard, but we can't wait till then with seniors. We got to tell you what we see. If we got places that are problematic on our list, where the numbers aren't going to work, we need to talk about that, not in March or April. So it'll come to you in a big 8.5 by 11 envelope with our logo up in the corner, blue and white. You know, you may want to skim through it, but you call us and someone on our staff will tell you exactly what we see in each of your situations. And I don't care whether you're low income, middle income, or high income, once we know where you stand under the formula, we know what strategies apply. And the better the student, the more options we have for admissions and financial aid as well, typically. I want to thank the school staff for their help today, Kristen in particular. I feel like we've had a chance to, in a really good way, to get in the face of a lot of students here to say, look, this stuff matters. We're available to complement the school staff, the foundation staff, in any way that we can. In some sick way, this is how I get my kicks. So take advantage of it in any way that you want. Any other questions before we go? Anybody that wants the paper estimator instead of the online version, be glad to give you one of those. You want my business card on the way out, be glad to give you one of those. And anytime you want to talk to me and my staff, please don't be bashful. Thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.